Appreciate you guys for tuning in to Rock. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago Bears daily. If you cannot sit here and listen to the whole thing, this will also be up in podcast form after it's all posted and all good, right? We'll drop that on the podcast side as well. If you listen or are a listener on the podcast side, give us a 5-star review. We appreciate you guys for showing love, man. Let me know in the comments below as well. Here are my 3 biggest takeaways from what we saw from the Chicago Bears on Sunday. Takeaway number 1. The Chicago Bears have bought in to the hits principle, not only on the offensive side, but on the defensive side, right? And I think that that's something you really, really have to point out, because a lot of the players that are being talked about that you can clearly see have bought in, you can look at them and say, okay, they were players that we thought we had issues with all offseason. And some of the players, right, we did have issues with this offseason. So to me, right, like, I look at the hits principle and I wanted to see not just were they doing it when turnovers were made on the defensive side, not just were they doing it when everybody was looking at them, right, but were they doing it in those moments that they weren't? And I can absolutely say that I saw that on both sides of the football. On the defensive side, even when there was a play that clearly was somebody was going to be down, they're punching at the ball. All of a sudden, they're trying to get this ball out. They're getting to the ball. They're gang tackling. They're playing with intensity. They're buying into the hits principle. They don't let one tackle happen without somebody punching at that ball. And that's why the Bears were able to force that fumble. Jalen Johnson was basically somewhat out of the play. Right? He's getting blocked. He's going to the left. Normally, what would we have seen last year? Try to wrap him up. If you can't get him, he's past you. This season, Jalen Johnson realizes he's out of the play. Let me take a swipe. Turns into a fumble going the other way. On the offensive side of the football, how's that hit principle come into play? I'll tell you this. Go back and you go look at Tevin Jenkins when Justin Fields is making his run. You go back and you look at some of those plays where Tevin Jenkins is out there. You go back and you look at some of those offensive linemen out there, right? They didn't give up after the ball got into the second level. They're out there running right with Justin. Okay, hey, we gotta give another block, or I gotta make this pancake block. Make sure he stays down. The hits principle applies to both sides. I know mentally we only think about it on the defensive side of the ball, but the hits principle applies to both sides of the football, and they absolutely were out there playing through the whistle, to the whistle, at the end of the whistle, a little bit past the whistle on some plays. I loved it. That's what I want to see on both sides of the football. You didn't see guys. Now I'm sure, right? His big thing is loafs, right? That's Flus's big thing. You don't want to have loafs on your play card, right? I would bet you Tevin Jenkins didn't have a lot of them. I'm kind of intrigued on the swapping in and out of Tevin Jenkins and Lucas Patrick at the guard position. I'm not a fan of it personally. I think you want to let those guys get that rhythm in there, right? But I think at the end of the day, right, it's about, are they showing you what you want? And guess what? Lucas and Tevin showing you the hits principle on display. So I think that was one of my big takeaways from that game, that both sides of this football have bought into what Coach Flus is talking about. My second takeaway from this game, and I know a lot of people might not like this. Blessings, that's a great one. Before I get to my second one, blessings to you, saying EQ was blocking downfield unlike A-Rob last year. That's another great one. Excuse me. That's another great one. EQ blocking downfield. That touchdown for Dante Pettis does not happen if Equinemius is not making a big block downfield. And guess what? Not only did he make a block, he also got a touchdown. Heck of a day for you, EQ. On a day where they weren't passing the ball a lot. My second major takeaway from this game, and there's a lot of people that might not like it, but the Chicago Bears have a clear-cut offensive direction. The Chicago Bears have a clear-cut offensive direction. Is it an offensive direction that you feel breeds to the success of the team long term? That's yet to be seen, right? We'll see. But at a minimum, this season, we've heard, and how many seasons in a row have we heard, this is the offense that we want to run. This is where we want to see our team at. This is how we want. No. None of that. This season, the Chicago Bears are a run-heavy team. Guess what we saw in the preseason? The Chicago Bears preparing to be a run-heavy team. Guess what we saw in the offseason? The Chicago Bears adding pieces of their team to be a run-heavy team. Guess what the Chicago Bears did in week 1 in conditions that spoke to being that kind of team? They were a run-heavy team, and even when they started to get down, they did not go away from their vision. We have a clear-cut offensive direction, and though some people may not like that, I know there's some people that say, I want to see, I know super producer Joel Holt was saying that he wanted to see, Komet get more involved in the offense, more of a passing game. Kid wants to see Fields sling that ball a little bit more, right? That's not going to happen this season. Welcome to a run-heavy offense. A lot of the passes that you saw, even in that rain, are a lot of the passes that you're going to see during this season. That doesn't mean the Bears aren't going to take their shots downfield. That doesn't mean that the Bears aren't going to take their shots downfield. But it means that the Chicago Bears are going to implement their offense week by week, and they're going to stick with what works for how this team was built in the offseason until, right, maybe Justin Fields all of a sudden starts slinging that pill, or N'Keal Harry comes back and he's snatching the ball out of the air and he's a big 6'4" wide receiver that changes the entire game for us. Until we see that, they have their system. And I'm not going to lie, I like that. And then finally, my third major takeaway from this game, for the first time in a meaningful football game, and it's not like it's been a long time, but for the first time in a meaningful football game, Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears did not look unprepared. Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears did not look unprepared. They didn't look like all of a sudden the moment, something changed in the moment, right? They didn't look like something changed in the moment. And because of that change in the moment, they didn't know how to adjust to it. You heard Justin Fields talking after the game kind of about how he was preparing for that game, right? And how he kind of was getting himself ready because he knew that there was going to be rain. He didn't know that there was going to be that much rain, but he said he knew that there was going to be rain on the field. And he said he was preparing with a glove already. He was preparing with the ball in his hand, wet ball in his hand with the glove on, tried it with the glove off, didn't like it with the glove off, put the glove back on. He was preparing for the conditions that were going to be on the field. The Chicago Bears, for the first time in a long time, looked like they were prepared not only for the team that they were playing, but for the conditions that were happening on the field. And I have to say, I give kudos to the coaching staff for that. I give kudos to what the Chicago Bears were able to do on Sunday. And I give kudos to Justin Fields for bouncing back after an awful first half. Say what you want about it, right? Like, listen, I love Justin. I want to see Justin be great. I want to see Justin do well. It was an awful first half. And he knows it. And while the conditions do play into it, that team looked prepared for everything the 49ers were able to throw at them. Now, here's, and I think this is something key that you have to say. If you can continue that moving forward, you're looking at a team that may not always be the most talented team on the field, but that can get fortunate. And what's fortune? What's being fortunate? It's just having things break the right way for you and you were in the right position. It's having things break the right way for you and you were in the right position. And if you're in the right position, you may not always be the most talented, but you'll be in the position to make the play, and that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, man. And that's why I give Justin credit on it. That's why I give Justin credit on it, man. I give Justin and this offense and the defense credit on how they played on Sunday.